something profoundly disturbing happening in our generation. People are becoming unrecognizable versions of themselves. And I'm not talking about physical transformation. I'm talking about something far more sinister. They're disappearing while still breathing. They're present but absent. They exist but they're not really living. And here's what troubles me most. We've normalized mediocrity to such a degree that when someone decides to actually pursue their potential with everything they have, society calls them obsessed. We call them extreme. We say they've lost balance. But let me tell you something that will shift your perspective entirely. What the world calls obsession, destiny calls preparation. There was a young man I encountered some years ago. Brilliant mind, sharp intellect. The kind of person who could hold a conversation about anything and impress anyone in the room. He had this gift of making people feel comfortable, of being everyone's friend, of being present at every gathering, every celebration, every casual meeting. His phone never stopped ringing. His calendar was perpetually full. He was, by all social standards, successful in his relationships, but there was something missing. Deep within him, there was a nagging sense that he was built for something more. Not something different, something more. He had dreams that would wake him up at night. Visions that would interrupt his casual conversations. Ideas that would make his heart race in the middle of mundane activities. But here's what happened. Every time that inner voice would speak, his phone would ring. Every time that vision would try to crystallize, someone would knock on his door. Every time he would attempt to sit with his thoughts, his friends would pull him into another adventure. Years passed, and one day, he found himself at 35 years old, still the life of every party, still everyone's favorite person to call, still incredibly popular and completely unfulfilled. His potential had been buried under the weight of availability. His destiny had been postponed by the tyranny of the urgent. His purpose had been diluted by the demands of people who loved his presence but knew nothing about his assignment. Something broke inside him that year. Not a breakdown, a breakthrough. He made a decision that changed the trajectory of his entire existence. He disappeared. Not physically. He didn't move to another city or change his phone number. He simply became unavailable to everything that didn't align with what was burning inside him. His friends thought he'd lost his mind. His family worried he'd become antisocial. People whispered that success had changed him, that he'd become proud, that he'd forgotten where he came from. But here's what they didn't understand. He hadn't forgotten where he came from. He'd finally remembered where he was going. For 18 months, he went dark. He stopped attending events that didn't contribute to his growth. He stopped engaging in conversations that drained his mental energy. He stopped being accessible to people who only knew how to take from him but never add to him. And in that season of strategic withdrawal, something remarkable happened. He built what distraction had prevented. He created what busyness had postponed. He became who mediocrity had hindered. When he reemerged, people didn't recognize him. Not because his face had changed, but because his frequency had shifted. He was operating on a different wavelength. He was speaking a different language. He was moving with a different kind of authority. And the same people who criticized his disappearance were now the ones trying to get his attention. The same voices that questioned his focus were now the ones asking for his advice. The same individuals who mocked his commitment were now the ones celebrating his achievement. But here's the profound part of this story. When they reached out to him, they had to reintroduce themselves. Not because he'd forgotten them, but because they were meeting a version of him they'd never encountered before. The old him knew them. The new him required an introduction. This is the power of radical focus. This is the authority that comes from protecting your assignment with everything in you. This is what happens when you value your future more than you value being liked in your present. See, what many people don't understand is that distraction isn't just about social media or entertainment. Distraction is anything that occupies your time and energy without contributing to your assignment. And sometimes the most dangerous distractions come dressed as opportunities. They look legitimate, they sound reasonable, they even feel productive. But they are not aligned with where you're going. And anything that's not aligned with your destination is a detour, no matter how attractive it appears. I've watched people with extraordinary potential live ordinary lives because they couldn't say no. They had the intelligence but lacked the discipline. They had the vision but lacked the focus. They had the dream but lacked the dedication to protect it from the invasions of lesser things. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. There's a distinction between being active and being effective. There's a gap between motion and progress. And until you understand this difference, you will spend your entire life running in circles, exhausted from all your activity, but frustrated by your lack of advancement. The reason most people never reach their potential is not because they don't have what it takes. It's because they are trying to take too many things with them on the journey. They want to carry their old friendships into their new season. They want to maintain their old habits while pursuing new heights. They want to keep their old mindset while expecting new results. And life doesn't work that way. Some things must be left behind for new things to be picked. Turning up, some people must be outgrown for your potential to be actualized. Some seasons must end for new chapters to begin. Now, I'm not advocating for you to become arrogant or disconnected from reality. I'm not suggesting you burn bridges or treat people with disrespect. What I'm telling you is this: there's a season for everything. And there's a season when your primary relationship must be with your assignment, not with people's opinions of you. There's a woman whose story I find absolutely captivating. She worked in corporate America for 15 years, stable job, good salary, excellent benefits. But inside her, there was this burning desire to create something of her own. She wanted to build a business that would solve a problem she identified in her industry. She had the plan. She had the knowledge. She had the experience. What she didn't have was time. Every minute of her day was accounted for. Wake up, get the kids ready, commute to work, 8 hours of meetings and emails, commute back home, make dinner, help with homework, collapse into bed, repeat. Her life was a predictable cycle of responsibility and routine. And in that cycle, her dream was suffocating. But she made a decision that most people would consider insane. She started waking up at 3:30 in the morning. While her family slept, while the world was quiet, while there were no emails to answer and no meetings to attend, she worked on her vision. 2 hours every single morning. No excuses, no negotiations, no exceptions. Her friends thought she was torturing herself. Her colleagues couldn't understand why she looked tired. Her family worried about her health, but she kept going because she understood something that most people never grasp. Exceptional results require exceptional commitment. Extraordinary outcomes demand extraordinary sacrifice. Uncommon achievement necessitates uncommon discipline. For 3 years, she lived this way. 3 years of early mornings, 3 years of tired eyes and strong coffee, 3 years of saying no to late night television and weekend parties, 3 years of focus so intense that everything else became background noise. And then something shifted. Her side project started gaining traction. Her solution started attracting attention. Her business started generating revenue. Within 5 years of that first early morning, she had not only left her corporate job, she had built a company that was doing 8 figures in annual revenue. She had created employment for others. She had become an authority in her industry. She had transformed from an employee to an employer, from a consumer to a creator, from ordinary to extraordinary. When people from her past would encounter her, they were stunned. They remembered the tired woman who was always rushing, always stressed, always complaining about not having enough time. Now they were meeting a woman who radiated confidence, who spoke with authority, who moved with purpose. They had to reintroduce themselves because the person they knew no longer existed. The caterpillar they remembered had become a butterfly they couldn't recognize. This is what focus does. This is the transformation that happens when you stop negotiating with your potential and start demanding it to manifest. This is the result of refusing to let your current circumstances define your future possibilities. But let me be very clear about something. This kind of focus will cost you. It will cost you relationships with people who don't understand your assignment. It will cost you opportunities that look good but don't align with your direction. It will cost you the comfort of blending in with the crowd. It will cost you the luxury of being ordinary. The question is not whether you're willing to pay a price. You're paying a price regardless. The question is which price you're willing to pay. Will you pay the price of discipline or the price of regret? Will you pay the price of focus or the price of power? Mediocrity? Will you pay the price of temporary discomfort or the price of permanent unfulfillment? You see, every day you wake up, you're making a choice. You're choosing between your comfort and your calling. You're choosing between what's easy and what's necessary. You're choosing between popularity and purpose. And the accumulation of these daily choices creates the reality of your life. Most people choose comfort. They choose what's familiar over what's optimal. They choose what's easy over what's effective. They choose what makes them liked over what makes them legendary. And then they wonder why their lives feel empty despite being full of activity. There's a principle I want you to understand deeply. Your attention is your most valuable currency, not your time, your attention. Because you can be somewhere physically and be completely absent mentally. You can spend time on something without actually giving it your focus. And whatever receives your attention grows. Whatever receives your focus expands. Whatever receives your concentration multiplies. If you give your attention to distraction, distraction will multiply in your life. If you give your focus to mediocrity, mediocrity will expand in your experience. If you give your concentration to things that don't matter, those things will dominate your reality. But if you redirect your attention toward your assignment, if you focus your energy on your purpose, if you concentrate your efforts on your calling, you will experience a transformation that will make you unrecognizable to your former self. I've seen this happen over and over again. I've watched people who were written off as average rise to become exceptional. I've observed individuals who were overlooked and underestimated become forces to be reckoned with. I've witnessed transformation that defied logic and progress that contradicted predictions. And every single time, the catalyst was the same. They focused so hard that everything else became irrelevant. When you reach that level of focus, something supernatural begins to happen. Your mind becomes sharper. Your decisions become clearer. Your path becomes more defined. Your progress becomes more rapid. It's not magic, it's mathematics. It's the compounding effect of consistent, concentrated effort over time. Think about a magnifying glass in the sun. Ordinary sunlight spread across a wide area produces minimal heat, but take that same sunlight and concentrate it through a lens onto a single point and you can start a fire. The power didn't change, the focus did. The energy was always there, the concentration made it effective. You have power within you right now. You have potential that hasn't been activated. You have capacity that hasn't been utilized, but is scattered. Is diffused across too many interests, too many relationships, too many activities, too many commitments that aren't connected to your core assignment. And scattered power is powerless, diffused. Energy is ineffective. Divided attention is destructive. What would happen if you took all that energy and focused it? What would happen if you concentrated all that potential in one direction? What would happen if you channeled all that capacity toward one objective? You wouldn't just improve, you would transform. You wouldn't just progress, you would accelerate. You wouldn't just grow, you would explode into a dimension of effectiveness you've never experienced before. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think focus means doing one thing for the rest of their lives. They think it means becoming rigid, inflexible, unable to enjoy life. That's not what I'm talking about. Focus doesn't mean you become a machine. Focus means you become intentional. It means you stop allowing randomness to dictate your days. It means you stop letting other people's emergencies become your priorities. It means you stop being available to everything and become accessible to what matters. There's a musician I came across whose journey absolutely fascinates me. He played 5 different instruments: guitar, piano, drum, saxophone, and violin. He was good at all of them. Not great, but good. He could perform at local venues, play at weddings, entertain at small gatherings. He made decent money. He was respected in his community. People would say that's the guy who can play everything. But inside him, there was this restlessness. This sense that being good at everything was preventing him from being exceptional at something. He had this deep connection with the piano specifically. When he played it, something happened that didn't happen with the other instruments. Time would stop. His consciousness would shift. He would enter a state where the music wasn't coming from his fingers. It was flowing through him. But he kept playing all 5 instruments because that's what paid the bills. That's what people expected. That's what felt safe. Until one day, he had an experience that changed everything. He was performing at a concert where a world-renowned pianist was the main act. He watched this master play, and something inside him broke open. It wasn't envy, it was recognition. He was witnessing what happens when someone doesn't just play an instrument, but becomes one with it. When someone doesn't just perform music, but channels something transcendent through their gift. That night, he made a decision that everyone around him thought was foolish. He sold 4 of his 5 instruments, kept only the piano. His friends said he was limiting his opportunities. His family said he was putting all his eggs in one basket. Other musicians said he was making a strategic mistake in an industry where versatility equals survival. But he didn't care. For the next 4 years, he did nothing but play piano. 8 hours a day minimum. He studied the masters. He dissected compositions. He practiced scales until his fingers bled. He explored techniques that most players never attempt. He pushed into territories of that instrument that most people don't even know exist. He became obsessed, not with success, not with fame, not with money, but with mastery. People stopped calling him for gigs because he was no longer versatile. Event planners stopped booking him because he could only offer one instrument. His income dropped significantly. There were months when he didn't know how he would pay rent. His social circle shrank because he didn't have time for casual hangouts anymore. From the outside, it looked like his career was dying. But from the inside, something was being born that the world had never seen from him before. Year 4, something remarkable happened. A video of him playing an original composition went viral. Not because of marketing or luck, but because what he was doing with that piano was so unique, so powerful, so emotionally moving that it couldn't be ignored. Within 6 months, he was being invited to perform at prestigious venues. Within a year, he had released an album that critics called groundbreaking. Within 2 years, he was collaborating with artists he used to admire from a distance. Today, he's not known as the guy who plays 5 instruments. He's known as a piano virtuoso, a master of his craft, an innovator in his field. And here's the beautiful irony. He makes more money playing one instrument with excellence than he ever made, playing 5 instruments with mediocrity. He has more opportunities specializing than he ever had, diversifying. He has more impact being exceptional at one thing than he ever had being average at many things. When old acquaintances encounter him now, They're meeting someone completely different, not just in skill level, but in presence. There's an authority that comes from mastery. There's a confidence that comes from knowing you've gone deeper than most people are willing to go. There's a power that comes from choosing depth over breadth, excellence over adequacy, mastery over mediocrity. This is what I want you to understand. The world doesn't reward jack of all trades. The world rewards masters. The market doesn't pay premium prices for people who can do everything at an average level. The market pays premium prices for people who can do one thing at an exceptional level. Your value doesn't increase by addition. It increases by subtraction. By cutting away everything that dilutes your focus, you concentrate your power. Now, let me address something that might be creating resistance in your mind right now. You might be thinking, but I have responsibilities. I have bills to pay. I have people depending on me. I can't just focus on one thing and ignore everything else. I hear you. And I'm not suggesting you abandon your responsibilities. What I'm suggesting is that you audit your life and identify what's truly a responsibility and what's simply a habit disguised as necessity. There was a CEO of a growing tech company who was drowning in meetings. His calendar was booked from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, every single day. Meeting after meeting after meeting. He was exhausted, burnt out, and ironically, the company's growth had plateaued. He was so busy being available to everyone that he had no time to think strategically, to innovate, to lead with vision. His board of advisors kept telling him to hire more people, delegate more tasks, expand the team, but he did something radical instead. He canceled 80% of his meetings, just stopped attending them. He told his team that unless something was urgent and required his unique decision-making authority, he wasn't available. His executive team thought he was abandoning ship. His managers thought he was becoming disconnected from operations. But what he actually did was create space. Space to think. Space to strategize. Space to see the business from 30,000 feet. Instead of being buried in the daily details, for 3 months, he spent most of his time alone, reading, analyzing data, studying competitors, mapping out innovation strategies, identifying blind spots in their business model. His leadership team was frustrated because he was unavailable. His middle managers complained because they couldn't get immediate answers. Some employees even started rumors that he was planning to sell the company, but he stayed focused. He protected his attention like it was the most valuable asset in the organization because it was part. After those 3 months, he emerged with a strategy that transformed the entire company. He had identified inefficiencies that were costing them millions. He had discovered market opportunities they were completely missing. He had developed an innovation roadmap that positioned them ahead of their competition. Within 18 months of implementing that strategy, the company had doubled its revenue and tripled its valuation. His leadership team, who had complained about his unavailability, were now the beneficiaries of his focus. The managers who had criticized his withdrawal were now executing a vision that was actually taking the company somewhere. The employees who had questioned his commitment were now receiving bonuses from the growth his strategic focus had generated. When industry peers would meet him at conferences, they were shocked. They remembered a tired, reactive leader who was always rushing from one crisis to another. Now they were encountering a calm, strategic visionary who spoke with clarity and moved with purpose. He had focused so hard on what actually mattered that people who thought they knew him had to reintroduce themselves to who he had become. This principle applies to every area of life. Your relationships, your health, your finances, your spiritual development, your personal growth. You cannot give equal attention to everything and expect exceptional results in anything. You have to choose. You have to prioritize. You have to protect your focus with the same intensity that a soldier protects his position. The enemy of great is not bad, it's good. It's the good opportunities that prevent you from pursuing the great ones. It's the good relationships that drain energy from the transformative ones. It's the good activities that consume time meant for the essential ones. And until you develop the courage to say no to good, so you can say yes to great, you will live a life of perpetual frustration. Always busy, but never fulfilled. Always active, but never actualized. Let me give you a framework that might help. Every opportunity, every relationship, every activity, every commitment that comes your way should be evaluated through this lens. Does this move me closer to my assignment or distract me from it? Does this add energy to my vision or drain energy from it? Does this align with where I'm going or keep me where I am? If it doesn't align, you have to let it go. Even if it's a good thing, even if it's a profitable thing, even if other people are doing it successfully, because their path is not your path. Their assignment is not your assignment. Their timeline is not your timeline. And the moment you start living your life based on what works for other people instead of what you're called to do, you begin the slow death of your unique purpose. I've watched too many people die with their potential still inside them. Not because they were lazy, not because they lacked intelligence, not because they didn't have opportunities, but because they spent their entire lives responding to other people's agendas instead of protecting their own. They spent their energy making other people's dreams come true while their own dreams collected dust in the closet of someday. Here's a truth that might sting. Someday is not a day of the week. Eventually, it's not a strategy. When things settle down, it's not a real season. If you're waiting for the perfect time to focus on what matters, you will wait your entire life, because the perfect time doesn't exist. There will always be distractions. There will always be demands. There will always be people who need something from you. There will always be reasons to postpone what's important for what's immediate. The difference between people who actualize their potential and people who die with regret is not talent, it's decision. It's the decision to start even when conditions aren't perfect. It's the decision to focus even when people don't understand. It's the decision to protect your assignment even when it costs you popularity. It's the decision to become unavailable to distractions even when it makes you seem antisocial. And here's what I've discovered. When you make that decision, when you truly commit to focusing on your assignment with everything in you, the universe conspires to support you. Opportunities that were closed begin to open. Resources that were scarce begin to flow. People who can help you begin to appear. It's not magic, it's alignment. When your deep actions align with your purpose, when your focus aligns with your calling, when your daily decisions align with your ultimate destination, you tap into a flow of favor that defies natural explanation. But you have to go first. You have to make the move. You have to create the space. You have to protect the focus. Nobody is going to do it for you. Nobody is going to give you permission to pursue your potential. Nobody is going to apologize for distracting you from your destiny. You have to take responsibility for your attention, for your time, for your energy, for your life. So let me ask you directly, what would your life look like if you focused on your assignment with the same intensity that you currently give to distractions? What would become possible if you protected your vision with the same energy that you currently spend on entertainment? What transformation would occur if you invested in your growth with the same consistency that you currently invest in comfort? I'm not asking you to imagine this theoretically. I'm asking you to calculate it practically. If you took just 2 hours every day, 2 hours that you currently spend on social media, television, meaningless conversations, mindless scrolling, and invested those 2 hours into your craft, your skill, your business, your health, your relationships, your spiritual development, where would you be in 5 years? 2 hours a day is 14 hours a week. 14 hours a week is 56 hours a month. 56 hours a month is 672 hours a year. That's 28 full days. You would essentially add a month to your productive year just by reclaiming 2 hours of focus time daily. In 5 years, that's 140 days of concentrated effort toward your assignment. And I'm not even talking about eliminating all distractions, just 2 hours. Now, imagine if you went further. Imagine if you actually conducted a comprehensive audit of how you spend your time and ruthlessly eliminated everything that doesn't serve your purpose. The transformation wouldn't be linear, it will be exponential, because focus compounds, consistency multiplies, dedication accumulates, and what seems like small daily decisions create massive long-term results. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not next week. Not when things settle down. Right now, this is your invitation to make a decision that will change the trajectory of your entire existence. The decision to focus so intensely on what you're called to do that everything else becomes background noise. The decision to protect your assignment with such fierce dedication that people who think they know you will have to reintroduce themselves to who you're becoming. Your potential is not a question mark, it's an exclamation point waiting to be expressed. Your purpose is not a mystery, it's a message waiting to be delivered. Your assignment is not a suggestion, it's a mandate waiting to be fulfilled. But none of it happens accidentally. None of it manifests through wishful thinking. None of it materializes while you're distracted by lesser things. Focus is not just a nice idea. It's the bridge between where you are and where you are meant to be. It's the vehicle that transports you from ordinary to extraordinary. It's the catalyst that transforms potential into reality. And the moment you truly commit to it, the moment you decide that your assignment is worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth becoming unavailable for everything else for, that's the moment your life stops being a reaction to circumstances and becomes a deliberate creation of destiny. So focus with everything in you. Focus until people who thought they knew, you have to ask your name again. Focus until your transformation speaks louder than their opinions. Focus until your results silence their doubts. Focus until who you're becoming makes who you were completely unrecognizable. This is not just a speech. This is a sermon. This is your invitation to stop living below your potential and start operating at the level of your assignment. The world is waiting for what only you can deliver. But it will never emerge until you create the space, protect the focus, and commit to the discipline that mastery demands. Your time is now. Your season is here. Your assignment is calling. The only question that remains is this: will you answer with the focus it deserves?